Welcome to the Cannabis Innovators Show. My name is Michelle Holliday. We are excited to be producing our 5th show. If you haven't had a chance to tune in previously, then you can easily go back to Portfolio Wealth Global's website or YouTube channel to access the Cannabis Innovators playlist. In recent weeks, we spoke to fund manager and trade show tycoon Randy Shipley. If you're looking to understand some of the amazing entry-level jobs or high-ranking positions available, this interview is for you. Another important episode is with Project 7 Security Group's Senior Vice President, Warren Pulley, who spoke with us about the need of cannabis businesses to prevent robberies while moving cash around and various other security components. Today, I'm introducing a guest to you who probably has one of the best jobs in the world. You know, in the days of the California gold rush, Mark Twain famously quoted that the best jobs in the business to become involved with were picks and shovels. Our guest today is implementing that same strategy. You know, gold mining is hard, but everyone needs the tools to dig, so it makes sense. We are in the earliest stages of the marijuana legalization process, with many states forming regulatory laws and standards, the most important of which is on January 1st, 2018, legalization in California. And what entrepreneurs are looking into right now is how to get involved with the coming windfall of profits. Not everyone is a grower or a scientist, so satellite businesses, those that are vital for the industry to grow, but not directly touching the product, are important. Erick Gomez is the founder and CEO of Canopy in San Diego, California. After over 20 years of working in Fortune 500 firms, Erick has entered the cannabis industry. As an investor and a business accelerator, he is building a portfolio of some of the best new cannabis companies in the industry. Erick, welcome to the Cannabis Innovators Show. Thank you for being with us today.
Hi, Michelle. Happy to be here.
My first question right off the bat is this. Canopy of San Diego is an accelerator. What does that mean?
An accelerator is a few different things depending on who you are. But in a nutshell, we are an investment fund that invests in startups. We put them through a 16-week curriculum, and that curriculum ends in a demo day where we introduce our companies to the public. And then obviously as those companies grow and exit, then we are able to pay back our investors. So to an investor, we are, as I mentioned, a fund. So the idea behind it was to essentially de-risk cannabis investing as much as possible while still taking advantage of the upside. So we offer a diversified portfolio. So that's one way to de-risk. And another way is to focus on non-touching segments, the ancillary segments. So all business services, tech companies, hardware, media, bioag, those are the kind of companies that we focus on. So there's a little less legal and banking risk there. And to an entrepreneur, we are a place to get funded. We're a place to have free workspace, to connect with mentors and investors, to be trained on how to build a company, how to think about the market and finances and funding, and really give you a launching pad as an entrepreneur to go out and compete in this world of startups. We're also a platform for the community. So we have 50 to 60 mentors that come in and offer their experience and knowledge to our companies, as well as for people who are career shifting, maybe looking for a new opportunity, investors who are curious but not ready to jump in yet. It's a place for them to come, join us, meet everybody. We have social events, we have networking events, and so we're really kind of a safe place for the community to get together and understand and explore cannabis a little bit more.
How did Canopy in San Diego begin?
It began because I was looking for a way to invest in the industry. So this, the concept was sort of born out of my own desire to be able to place money in a way that I felt comfortable in cannabis. And I started looking around. There's really very little infrastructure behind this industry, especially in San Diego. So I ended up in Denver. I met a couple of entrepreneurs that I really liked, and then I also figured out that they went through an accelerator called Canopy Boulder. So I met those guys, Patrick and Micah, and said, hey, this would be a great idea to do in San Diego. But they didn't have it really on their radar yet. So I asked them if I'd put together a team out here, and we have a team of 4 co-founders. I'm just one of the 4, and we put together basically a duplicate model out here, and we're partnered now with Canopy Boulder, and their vast network through ArcView and everybody else.
Now, Erick, in the next surge of growth for satellite businesses in the cannabis industry, where is it going to come from? In other words, if someone is listening to our interview and they are in sales, marketing, engineering, computing, banking, etc., what are some of the sectors that you see as super profitable and needing of innovation?
The short answer is all of them, but let me sort of define those a little bit. You know, the cannabis industry itself is the growing and selling of the cannabis plant, but really there are 6 major consumer segments that are being born out of the cannabis raw material, if you will. And those are the pharmaceutical segment, there's a clinical segment, a therapeutic segment, a wellness segment, there's a lifestyle rec segment, and then there's a new consumer rec segment. And so to take, one extreme, the pharmaceutical side, the United States is a little bit behind the ball in the research and in the development of these products and companies that are going to be servicing this segment. Israel's way ahead of us. Canada's on their way. We're even seeing Latin American countries like Colombia and Uruguay get ahead on this. So if you're in the medical field or that's your background, that there's certainly a ton of growth simply because the research hasn't even been done yet. And so we kind of see, almost weekly, I would say, news about some great test or trial that's been done, and it's proven that cannabis has yet another medicinal benefit. Now, one thing the U.S. is very good at is exporting culture. So if you're more in the consumer branding, consumer products side of the industry, then the U.S. is going to be taking off, building brands, implementing new ways to gather around cannabis in the new consumer market, and so that would be obviously a big opportunity here in the U.S. But really, whether you're an accountant, marketing expert, a salesperson, or a scientist, this industry is growing at 30% a year. So, and that's not just the U.S. This is a global industry. So, I would say certainly there are plenty of opportunities out there.
Now, on the personal side of things at home, with your immediate family, I know that your background is in Fortune 500 businesses. Is there any concern that you've gone into the cannabis business and the overall environment of marijuana?
No, and that's been actually, I would say, one of the largest surprises is really the support that everyone's provided. I have family from North Carolina. And I always thought that they would be the last ones to sort of get behind the cannabis movement. And it's, I've been pleasantly surprised to hear that they're absolutely behind medicinal cannabis and all the benefits it can have. So if somebody is worried about that, I would say, just go ahead and have the conversation, and you might be surprised at how open people are.
Wonderful. Now, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face at the moment? Obviously, institutions are reluctant to raise funds because of the federal hurdle at this time. So what are some of the obstacles for our listeners if they choose to invest or participate in the industry?
So the biggest obstacle is fear. Certainly, this is a Schedule I drug, and so you have a right to be afraid of what the federal government might do. But pick your cliche. The horses are out of the barn. The toothpaste out of the tube. Even as a Schedule I drug, this industry is growing again at 30% per year. Over half the states have legal medical laws, and depending on which poll you pay attention to, anywhere between 60 and 80% of the population supports legalization of cannabis. So those are the reality, that this industry is growing, that states continue to legalize cannabis. West Virginia just had a vote about a month ago, and I think there's a bill on the Vermont governor's desk right now that he'll probably let pass through. So that's the reality of the situation. So any fear that's created from rhetoric at a federal level is really just that. It's really just rhetoric. There's almost as many bills and initiatives trying to assist in the legalization of cannabis, trying to assist in the support of states' rights, trying to help bankers get into this industry without having fear of federal prosecution. So, that I would say is the biggest obstacle. If you look at the reality of the industry and you get past the headlines, you'll understand that besides the banking issue, fear is the number one. So banking is, I would say, the most mechanic obstacle. As a cannabis touching industry, which again we don't get involved with, it is extremely difficult to get a bank account under normal circumstances, you would say, as you and I would normally just go out and get a bank account. You have to be creative. There's ways to sort of protect yourself in the banking world. And that we see that sort of improving slowly, but until there's really a truly, I would say, understanding at a federal level for banks to be safe, based on anti-money laws and reporting, then that's the biggest obstacle, I think, to the growth of this industry.
Now, turning now to publicly traded companies, without naming any specific names, my question is this. I see only 50 to 60 companies that have IPO'd so far, and only a handful of those are making profits. Why is it so hard to be profitable? What are some of the problems that need to be solved by management teams so they can make serious money for their shareholders?
That would be a case-by-case basis and based on their business model. So whether you're a cultivator in Canada and you're making nice margins today, but you're watching your wholesale price of cannabis drop 25% per year, you're facing obviously very different obstacles than you are if you're one of our companies, for example, a software as a service company that has large margins and is highly scalable. So I would say that that's a business model question. It's tough for me to answer. I would generalize to say that for companies to be able to raise money on a public market, they have to qualify by being of a certain size, have certain funds, and very few companies in this industry, because it is a new industry, are actually in that situation. So a lot of the companies you see on the public markets have backed their way into it, and unfortunately, they were never profitable from the beginning. So I would say a lot of them have just gotten there in the wrong manner, and they had challenges from the beginning. And the few that are there on sort of a regular basis of qualifying, they're going to have to take a very close look at their business fundamentals and make sure that they're able to stay profitable and maintain those valuations that they have today. Personally, I think all the valuations are a bit inflated, and if you look, try and compare their business models to the same business model in another industry, you'll discover very quickly that their fundamentals just simply don't support those valuations. So it's a little bit of hype. There's a little bit of scarcity, and obviously with the newness of the industry, there's very little liquid investments you can make. So that might be why people are running into public markets and unfortunately, betting on the hype and on the growth and not really looking more closely at the companies they're investing in.
In your estimation, where is this industry going to be 5 to 10 years in the future in terms of stability, sustainability, wages, tax revenues, global reach, and profits?
Great question. I would say, again, you would have to look at each one of those consumer segments that I mentioned earlier. If you're looking at the more regulated medicinal segments, then they've got a long way to go to make sure that all of the agencies that test and qualify these companies to sell regulated drugs, make sure they're all qualified and essentially doing things the way they should be doing them. If you look at more of the consumer side of the businesses, I think things are going to happen a lot faster, and really it depends on ultimately the state agencies and the country agencies, if you want to take it on a global scale, to really understand how to tax each particular segment. Obviously, it's going to be different. If you're strictly looking at just flower, they have to make decisions on how much you tax flower that doesn't create too much of a price increase where now you're forcing people back into the black market. And so we're seeing a lot of debate over that. But really, it's the development of all the industries on a global scale are happening at such a rapid pace that I think there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. There's going to be a lot of mistakes made. But for the most part, I think we'll see, along with full federal legalization, these markets will just evolve into any other consumer market, just like we have today.
Now, Erick, how do you choose what startups you like? You know what I mean? In terms of a new company, what do you look for?
We, because we invest in seed stage companies, we really put a lot of focus on the founders. And so our founders need to have technical knowledge of the solution that they have determined is right for the industry. They have to have previous experience developing that solution in another industry, and of course they have to be passionate and dedicated to this endeavor. Obviously, we do analyze the problem solution and make sure they're actually solving a real problem in the industry. And for us, because we look for highly scalable companies, we want to make sure that they're playing in a market that is going to be able to scale across state and national boundaries and have ultimately the attention of a much larger industry. So, for example, if you take a software company, whether they're playing in inventory management or point of sale, to make sure that there are big players on the outside that can't get in today because of the previously mentioned banking and fear issues, that those exit opportunities are going to be available to them. So it's a combination of all of those things.
What are some of the different types of companies that are in your portfolio?
We really tried to shoot for a large, diverse group of services to the cannabis industry. So, to give you an example, we have 3 mobile apps, we have 2 online marketplaces, we have 2 software companies, we have a sales training company, we have a testing company, a bioag company, renewable energy, a consumer goods company, a digital media company, 1 ad marketing company, an ag tech company, and a CRM company. So as you can see, we didn't really pick one particular vertical. It's really all of the products and services that the cannabis industry needs that are really not being addressed by current providers.
Erick, could you give us an example of a new company that you've just brought in that is coming in cold as a baby company? What happens to launch them?
So essentially, the model has to fit our model, and then they need to put the right entrepreneur or CEO in place. So to give you an example, we know a lot of people in the industry. We get a lot of leads, if you will, from people who know what we do and have a business model that fits or know somebody that does. So we had actually a friend out here in San Diego who had a lab company, and he was having trouble scaling and growing. And once he knew what we were doing and the types of companies we're looking for, he actually redefined his business model a little bit and grabbed one of his colleagues to essentially run the show and go through the accelerator with us. So they sort of spun off, if you will, more of a virtual lab in a box solution, which fit our model perfectly because it's highly scalable. And then, they chose the right person to run it, and somebody we were comfortable bringing in the accelerator and being full time on this project. So, they're going through the program right now, so there are no conclusions yet. But that's an example of how our model can work with other models as long as they find the right way to present a highly scalable company to us, and they're able to have the right person to run and lead that business.
You had mentioned somebody that was new, a new company that had decided instead of going brick and mortar, they had a different alternative under your umbrella. Could you expand on that just a little bit?
Well, that is an example of this testing company. Most labs are capital intensive. They are, a physical asset, if you will, with high labor costs and the inability to really scale across regions very easily. So in this case, the concept was to take the testing, actually the sample aggregation and the sales and marketing, and outsource that to third-party affiliates and do that on a separate level, but bring back all those samples back into a centralized lab. And it's a concept that is not, unknown in other industries. People do it with blood and urine tests all the time. And so we simply applied a known business model to cannabis. We had to figure out the proper way to do it under, current regulatory restrictions. And so that's an example of how we're able to sort of spin a traditional business model into one that fits both cannabis and and our business model as well.
So you can help an entrepreneur tweak his idea to make it work.
Yes, absolutely, and certainly cannabis is a great it's a great place for people to innovate. They don't necessarily have to, recreate the wheel. And actually, we don't want people to try and do that here. We just simply want them to take their current knowledge and just tweak it just a little bit so that it fits the cannabis industry. And obviously, because of the barriers to entry in this industry, we're able to put them through the accelerator and get them to prove their concept in this industry. Now, once sort of the obstacles come down, then hopefully they'll already have that market share, that revenue, that reputation in the industry, where now they become attractive companies to acquire by other bigger companies that are looking to buy and not build in this space.
Now, for our listeners who have great ideas and may need funds and mentorship, where can they contact you and check out Canopy of San Diego?
So you can go to our website if you like, canopysd.com, and you can find contact info there. You can email me directly at erick@canopysd.com. And those are probably the two easiest ways to get a hold of us. And we are here in San Diego. We've got a demo day scheduled for mid-June, which we'll be announcing very shortly. And that'll be announcing our second cohort of 8 companies that is currently almost about 2/3 way done with the program here. And so there's a number of ways to find us in the San Diego community, including Startup Week, which is going to happen in June as well.
I attended your spring opening, and it was phenomenal. They were so excited.
Oh, great. At the Rubin Science Theater?
I just can't tell you. All of these companies, these startups, they just have stars in their eyes.
Well, thank you. It's pretty awesome to see them, develop. 16 weeks is, while it's not a long period of time, the amount of work that they get done, the amount of experience and knowledge that they get exposed to, and the sort of developments as far as their business strategy goes is really impressive. And it's really cool to see them come in on day one, and then the comparison to when they leave, at the end of those 16 weeks is pretty awesome to see.
It's very exciting. Erick, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. This has been an amazing interview.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Erick Gomez, CEO and founder of Canopy San Diego. For the Cannabis Innovators Show, I'm Michelle Holliday at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com. Today was an important interview because we got to speak with a true entrepreneur in the field. We got an inside look as to how an investor is looking at this industry. Erick's approach to the cannabis business is to focus on the ancillary side of it, what we call not touching the product. It is a well-known strategy dating back to the gold rush, where the biggest earners were not those who were prospecting, which is extremely speculative, but instead those who were providing the tools for the miners. This is the focus in which Portfolio Wealth Global is zooming in on. We will be covering our new marijuana stock picks this summer. The conclusion of this interview is that there is plenty of challenge today in the business of cannabis because companies that touch the actual product cannot grow beyond state lines. So the bigger states like California is where you want to be. At Portfolio Wealth Global, our specific cannabis page is at portfoliowealthglobal.com/cannabis potential. You can download our exclusive report where you will find important data information on this business sector. On our YouTube channel, we have our series of Cannabis Innovators shows, which is the premier spot for investors to tune in to what's going on in the industry. Join us for our weekly shows and be sure to take action. Thanks for tuning in today for the Cannabis Innovators Show. I'm Michelle Holliday at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com.